that she is a very committed and dedicated member of this Senate. Looking at the quality of the bills that she has brought in this House. Mr. Speaker, I remember Senator Hamida also sponsored a bill which was the Digital Health Bill, which came to the first reading. And at the point of the second reading, the government also brought their own bill, which was similar to her bill word by word. And this raises the issue, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, I would want you to listen to this. What is going to be done on the matter of plagiarism of bills, especially by the executive? When a private member sponsors a bill, and then it comes in here, it is processed in the usual manner, it goes to first reading, the second reading, the government side brings a similar bill, word by word. What is Senate supposed to do on this matter? Mr. Speaker, I think at some point, this is a discussion we will need to have, because us on this side of the minority, we felt really bad that a member can spend his time, can research, do a bill, and then the members of the executive come and plagiarize that bill and present to the same House, and we are not able to protect the member who has invested his time and resources in processing a bill. Instead, we go to the executive side. It really, really demoralizes that member, Mr. Speaker. To go to the substance of this bill, Mr. Speaker, this bill is long overdue, because we have been trying to deal with the issue of management of on-source revenue in our counties. We have been trying to deal with the issue of automation of revenue systems in our county. And Mr. Speaker, one time in this House, I questioned why our county governments are not able to perform better in revenue collection, on-source revenue collection. Whereas in the old system, the defunct local authorities, they used to do better revenue-wise. They were able to collect enough money. And you know, that time, those local authorities were led by councillors, people who had low education, people who were just there in the villages. They did not have human resource like what we have in counties now. They did not have tools, but they were able to raise more money compared to the current scenario where we have counties which are better resourced, which have better tools, but they are collecting less money. They are not able to meet their targets. Where is the problem? I think this is a study that I want to encourage the Committee of Devolution to try and undertake and find out how was it possible for the defunct local authorities to do better revenue performance than the current county government. Mr. Speaker, there is also the issue of counties not being able to meet their revenue target. They do budgets. Most of them exaggerate their on-source revenue targets, but they are not able to meet them. This is a serious problem. And this bill, Mr. Speaker, helps to a large extent to deal with this challenge of how to manage on-source revenue. So this bill is very timely, and I know discussions have been going on among stakeholders on how to deal with this problem. We have had the national policy to support enhancement of county on-source revenue that proposed that we have an integrated county revenue management system so that we can promote the revenue collection, transparency, accountability, and seal revenue leakages. But this discussion, Mr. Speaker, is a good discussion, but it has taken too long. So this bill is ahead of them by proposing that we have a legislation that will anchor their proposals into law. Mr. Speaker, we have also had a multi-agency task force on this issue of integrated county revenue management system, so that we can have standardized revenue collection systems in our counties. Because what is happening, Mr. Speaker, is that we have diverse systems for revenue collection in different counties. And these systems, Mr. Speaker, talking as an IT expert, these systems are not type approved. We need to have a type approval process so that we have an entity that analyzes these systems and says that this system is suitable for revenue collection. Most of those systems don't meet the standards. The issue of agency fee that has been raised by Senator Cherargei, it is true. Some of them have very exorbitant agency fees. And the question is, that money, where does it go to? If you ask someone to pay money, and then you say 20% of that money is an agency fee, whom does it go to? These are questions. And that is another avenue of stealing from our counties. We know some of these systems are timed not to operate at particular times. So that at particular times when they think the revenue is very high, the system goes down, they go back to manual. That is when the stealing is taking place. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this process of having an integrated county revenue management system so that we can have a uniformity, so that even this House can audit that system. But if we have diverse systems, in fact, in some counties, we have multiple revenue collection systems. Not just one, it is multiple. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill by Senator Hamida helps us to standardize the systems that we have in our counties to ensure that there is transparency, efficiency, and verifiability of these systems, so that we ensure that we are able to deal with security issues like fraud-related issues. But, Mr. Speaker, even as we do this, I want to encourage that counties must run these systems distinctively from the national government. So the proposal on requiring that the counties shall, in consultation with the National Treasurer and KRA, decide, I think we need to relax that. I maybe say maybe, because we also don't want, as a people who are supposed to help in implementation of Article 96, to be seen to be making our counties subsidiary to the national government. So I think that part, Senator Hamida, I would propose that we have an improvement on that. Secondly, county treasury is just an entity in counties. And this decision to come up with this system is a bigger decision that requires the input of the county executive. So we should not make it as a preserve of the county treasury. We need to say that county executive will be taking the lead in this, because county treasurer is a junior member of the county. He reports to the chief officer, finance, and also CEC, finance. Those are people who are supposed to make substantive decisions regarding financial matters in the county. So we can't keep them off this. We need to amend that so that we give this power to the county executive. Mr. Speaker, the requirement that reports be presented to the Senate and to the county assembly is very timely. But I have a problem with presenting the reports to the National Treasury, because again, that also makes counties subsidiary to the national government. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the transfer of functions, funding, the costing of function, I think, Mr. Speaker, this is one of the areas that this Senate must take the lead. We have been taken in circles on this matter of transfer of functions. Even this current regime, the Kenya Kwanza regime, among the many promises they made to Kenyans, I remember one of the promises they made was that within 6 months of them coming to power, they will ensure 100% transfer of function. That has not happened, Mr. Speaker. We are now in the second year. That has not happened. There is no sign that that will happen. I remember last year, the IGRTC also said the same thing, that they are almost finalizing. They are 1 month away to transferring functions to the counties. Mr. Speaker, they have not done that. It's just talk, talk, and talk, and talk. I think this is a conversation that we must take the lead as a Senate and push it, because we have so many functions which are in the national government which should actually be in the county government. And we are not just talking about transfer of functions. This bill is now giving us the legal mandate to say that functions money must follow functions. We are not just transferring functions. And I want to ask governors to be very careful on how they engage the national government on the matter of functions. Because nowadays, the national government has now devised another way of controlling devolved function. They have now come up with what we call counterpart funding, where they say we are going to give you 50% and give us 50%. A good example, Mr. Speaker, is the funding for CHPs. They say we are going to give you 50%, give us 50%. CHPs in most counties have not been paid their stipend. In my own county, for the last 3 months, they have not been paid because of the delay in releasing the 50% counterpart funding by the national government. Mr. Speaker, we have also seen this issue of industrial park, where they said counterpart funding of 50%. Most of the money has not been taken to counties. The projects that were launched are still lying there. They are going to become white elephant. So we want to ask our governors to try and avoid getting into agreements with the national government on the pretext of counterpart funding. Funds must follow all the devolved function. Even liquor. I have heard the deputy president say that they want to take over liquor licensing in counties. I want to tell the deputy president, you have better things to do. Leave counties to run their function. Liquor is a county function. That is where some counties get their revenues. So if you say you want to take it over because you want to run it better, and yet the national government has functions which they are not running better, who is going to run for them those functions which they are not running better? Mr. Speaker, the issue of ECD, we have a lot of functions, ECD related, which are still being run in the Ministry of Education. All those functions should be taken to counties, and funds follow those functions. So that if we want to tell our counties to be run better, we want to tell them to be run better, but when we know they have more resources to run those functions. Mr. Speaker, this is a very timely bill, and with the little panel beating that I've indicated, this is a bill that we should all support and make it better. And I'm sure the National Assembly will also fast-track this bill so that we have a uniform, integrated county revenue management system, and probably this will help us deal with the problem of mismanagement ONSO's revenue, which also affects budget control and performance. Mr. Speaker, the leading query, audit query in most counties is the issue of budget control and performance, because counties are not able to meet the set targets of ONSO's revenue, and therefore they end up having budgets which are not working, and that becomes a query. So in a way, this bill will help in dealing with accountability issues, budget issues in our county, and make our counties run better. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I also want to say I am very disappointed. I know my friend Eddie was a bit emotional on this issue, but I also want to join my friend Cheregei to say I'm disappointed with the mediation committee. We all agreed, we passed a BPS here, we also made a decision, a majority decision, and agreed that we will stick with 415 billion shillings.
You are wading towards where Senator Eddie went. Do not anticipate that debate on that particular report. We are yet to receive it. We will receive it tomorrow. You will get an opportunity to castigate, if you want, the committee on mediation on what they've done. So do not anticipate that debate.
Well guided, Mr. Speaker. I was just saying that because, you know, we are talking about revenue, and there are two levels of revenue, the shareable revenue and the ONSO's revenue. So, and you know, the shareable revenue may also affect the ONSO's revenue, because county governments may want to invest in these systems, and they need money. So anyway, we will leave that debate for another day. Just to say, this is a wonderful bill, and I fully support it, and I want to encourage the members of this House to support it and fast-track it to become law with a few amendments that have been proposed by the Finance Committee, and they are going to be proposed by the members in this House. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator Osotsi. Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this bill. I rise to support the bill. Mr. Speaker, I have said here before that as we go into the 13th year after devolution, I think the Senate should work harder to strengthen the intergovernmental relations between the two levels of government in order for devolution to perform well. And most of the laws that we should bring should be laws that will strengthen that intergovernmental consultation and cooperation to ensure that the two levels of government recognize that they don't have separate citizens that they are serving, that they serve the same citizens, and therefore the 13 years of negative competition that has been there between the two levels needs now to tone down, and we need to get to a level where they assist us to move devolution as is envisaged in the Constitution of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, the issue that has been brought in this bill is absolutely important, and I support that we are at that level when we need to support or to put in place legal framework to ensure that county governments do better in terms of on-source revenue, collection, and accountability for those monies. Mr. Speaker, the proposed clause 160A speaks to principles that exist in the Constitution. The principle of transparency, efficiency, effectiveness, and a verifiable system, a system that is simple, a system that is secure, that should prevent any fraud or losses, and one, very important, that promotes the distinctiveness of the national government and the county government. Mr. Speaker, that is what any law that we are bringing in place that strengthens intergovernmental relations should enable us to do, to strengthen systems while delivering on devolution as provided for in the Constitution. So I would want to say that the principles that we are reaffirming in this bill are principles that already exist in the Constitution. And why are we reaffirming? Is because for the 13 years, those principles have not been properly implemented. And Mr. Speaker, not just at the county level, also at the national level. Mr. Speaker, you will recall just a few weeks back, we had the report from the Auditor General that is questioning a whopping 15.5 billion transacted through the e-citizen. So it's not as if national government and the e-citizen is necessarily foolproof. So what we are saying is this, that we need to put in place systems at the national government and at the county governments that will ensure Kenyans are not defrauded of their monies, that will ensure full accountability, whether it is national government or county government. So I wanted to disabuse the few comments made by those who believe automation means safety. Because, as the Auditor General has demonstrated recently, the e-citizen collection system that we have has issues. In fact, it says the controls are weak, it has the potential to be compromised, and it is heavily reliant on vendors. And we have been told, as Senator Cherarkei said, we are allowing the so-called digitization and automation to be squarely in the hands of people who've decided to reap money from Kenyans. Mr. Speaker, if we are paying taxes just for 20% of that to be given to one businessman because they gave us a system, I think we've lost it. And we need to revisit those issues. So even as we are thinking an integrated system, good sounding word, we need to ask ourselves, integrated means what? And I will go back to those principles that are being put in this bill to say whether national government, whether county government, to what extent are we putting in place a system that will ensure every contribution by a citizen, whether in a market or whether to the national government, that that money will go where it is supposed to go, and that money will contribute to the service delivery of this nation. So I want us to be careful not to send the message that accountability is required at the counties, but there's no accountability required at the national government. So we need to move in that level. Mr. Speaker, as we do so, I also want to request, Senator Hamida, that you might want to relook at a few of those clauses. When you look at 191F, 191F is talking about funding that is relating to transferred function. And in 191F1, you suggest that where the national government has transferred a function to a county government, pursuant to Article 187 of the Constitution, the Cabinet Secretary shall determine the cost of the transferred function. But in a similar clause, in 191G4, you say that a national government entity to which a county government has been transferred shall be, there is a place where the function is being transferred by the county government to the national government. You suggest that the cost shall be determined by national government and the county government. Senator Hamida, I hope I can persuade you that to determine that cost takes the two. You cannot make it the business of only national government to decide, Because if national government were to decide we are transferring our security function momentarily at the village to County X, and we think it will cost so much, and it turns out to be only half the cost, you are going to cause an issue. So that decision of determining cost must be a consultative process that should involve both the national government and the county government. And you might want to do this through the relevant COG committee. So I would want to urge that you relook at that and see how to move that issue. Mr. Speaker, even as we are thinking through this, I believe if this law were to be passed as is, it does not necessarily bring a new accountability requirement that is not in the Constitution. We need to ask ourselves, why do we have governments, both national and county, that defy the Constitution, that defy the law? What other laws can we bring to complement this law that can support or can ensure that we achieve what we hope to achieve with this law? Mr. Speaker, I would therefore urge Senator Hamida, even as you do this law, you might want to speak to Senator Chute, who is trying to bring a bill to strengthen the role of controller of budget, so that we are able, beyond the controller of budget, just clearing the appropriation or the requisition by county governments. We need to give the controller of budget the powers to be able to go further and find out, once those monies have been requisitioned, are they going to what they are supposed to? Today we sat in the Committee on Devolution, and one of the things we found out that has been discovered, that counties are requisitioning money on pending bills that are expected to go, they submit papers that indicate that this money is going to be paid to X, but in actual fact they are paying that money to Y. We were told how some counties have up to 300 excuse me, commercial bank accounts that are illegal. So if we just put in general and use the generality of the principles of transparency, the principles of accountability, but do not visit the bits that actually facilitate fraud, we will not get far. So I would urge that Senator Hamida also finds a way in which we can complement the law that we are running, so that the laws of other oversight bodies like controller of budget are also strengthened to ensure that if we have a controller of budget with integrity like the one we have currently, we will be able to call out the counties that are actually pilfering money through other means. Mr. Speaker,